Hey everybody, Carrie from KRLC Studio here. Welcome to our episode 6, signature number 5. Today we're going to work with some negative space or negative images and how we're going to work that into my pages or my signatures. So if you're interested, come along for the ride because I'd love to have you join me. Hey everyone, so we're on signature number 5. So this is the cover of my signature. And this is the signature that I mentioned before that I tried doing my tunnel book and it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. But the circle that I cut out for the original tunnel book, I'm going to use this as a template to cover, do something with this hole because I really like that and it's still really good, so I want to keep it. So I use this circle as a template, and as you can see, it's cut just a little bit bigger than the hole, which is fine. So I'm going to put that to a side, and I've already pre-done a few of these little things. What my idea is that I wanted to just have a image on the front of this cover page, or cover. So what I'm planning to do, that this circle is going to go here, these two circles. So what I did is I found something on Pinterest that I really liked, a quote, and it's "A smooth sea never made a skillful sailor." And so I just used this as a template, cut that out, and I actually fussy cutted all of those letters. Okay, and then I just glued that on top of a background. This is going to be the top here. I'm going to glue this to the bottom. And so it's going to go in here like this. Okay. What I'm going to do for this is that I also found an image on Pinterest that I really liked with a quote. And so that's going to go here. And the quote that I found on Pinterest is "Shine your light." So I just took a pencil and I did a template and I actually made this. I made this bulb and this out of paper, but I made the bulb out of a paint swatch. Okay, so I did that, I glued it together, okay, and then the template that I used to actually create the bulb, I just wrote the text onto that because I'm going to use a light table. I have a fine Sharpie pen to write the quote on top of my light bulb, and I have a light table to do that. So first of all, I'm going to do the light bulb. I also have these frames that I'm going to put on top of the circles once they're glued in. So here is my light table. I love this. My husband gave it to me, bought it for me for my birthday, and you can get this. It's flat, and it just plugs into your computer, and you can turn it on like that, and it's amazing. So if you're wondering where to get this, obviously Amazon. This is, I believe, a 9 by 12 inch. I'm going to put my bulb on there. You can see that. I'm going to come down really so you can see this. I don't know if you can or not. Side. I'm going to fill this in with my Sharpie and then I'll come back. There we go. So I've filled my text in. Shine your light. I thought that looks really good. If you're wondering where I got the font to do that, I actually have some font that I just put on the computer and I printed off the pages that I use. This one I actually just free drew it I copied it on the Pinterest, on the image that I saw, and I just free drew it. But if you want different fonts, I've taken tons and tons of fonts off, or the fonts that I really like, and I type it out into Word, Microsoft Word in alphabet, uppercase and lowercase, and then I print them off, and then I use those as templates for my light table, and I just shine them under, and I use that to do some really cool fonts on my pages when I don't like to see my own handwriting. So I do that. So let's get to this. So I'm going to glue this down on top of my circle here. Okay, and that will go at the top. And kind of eyeing that. And just gluing that down. There, like that. Okay, then I'm gonna get my white gel pen, and just making a little bit of lines up here to just accentuate the top of the light bulb. Okay, just like that. Awesome. So I'm going to glue this to the back of this now. So I just want to make sure that when I do glue it, that it's centered. Okay, so this is centered with this. Okay, so when I flip over the page, it's not going like that, right? So I want to just make sure that they're both centered where I want them to be. Now that's okay if this is out a little bit, that's all right, because it's going to be covered when I glue it down. And that should work really good. Okay, so now I'm going to glue this to the back of this front page here, because this is how my frames for these are going to work. So I'm going to glue this to the back of the inside of my signature cover, and then I'm going to glue down the frame like that. This frame is going to be for this one. Okay, like that. Making sure that that's down. Bring that up and see if that's kind of where I want it to go. There we go. A little bit more. There. Okay, just going around. There, like that. Okay, so now I'm going to glue there we go. I'm going to glue my frame to the front. Looks really sharp. That's why I use a Kleenex or a paper towel, because it helps to take off the excess glue. It helps to press down the paper as well. In this frame, I actually, I don't have a Cricut or a die cut machine. I do it all by hand. And some of you might think I'm insane for doing that, but I don't have that, and you just kind of work with what you already have. So since I don't have either, I do a lot of my own hand cutting templates. Awesome. Okay, so I have my cover of my signature now. Now we're going to move on to doing the negative space pages that I mentioned. So we're on to our next signature in our group. So I mentioned that I really like negative space, and we're going to work with negative space today with this particular page. So what I did is I went online and I just found some silhouettes. So just ignore this. This is going to be for another page that we're going to do. But what I did is that I found a tree, because I wanted to do a tree. And I also found this wonderful one that it's just a child blowing bubbles, but inside of bubbles they're butterflies. And I have quotes that I'm going to go along with these. So what I wanted to do with this is that we're going to create we're going to create our signature using these strips. They're going to be vertical, and we're going to tape them together on the back so that we'll have these ribbons of color across the width of the signature. Then what I'm going to do is I have these two gray light sheets of paper. I've already I've already drawn my lines on it. I'm going to use my light table again, and I'm going to put them on top where I want these images to go. And I'm going to just roughly trace around the silhouette, and then I'm going to fussy cut it out of this so that it's going to be basically a negative space. So I'm going to keep that, and it's going to be, the tree is going to be cut out, and it's going to be a negative image. Then I'm going to glue it down so that you see these colors of strip through my tree image, my negative image here. And then I'm also going to put a text or a quote underneath this. So the tree is going to go on one side, okay, and the blowing bubble or blowing butterflies are going to be on the other side, okay, and then it will close up, and that will be our signature. Then I'll flip it over and we'll glue another page to the back of this. But I wanted to use that. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. So first of all, before we get doing this with the light table, I wanted to create our signature here. Okay. So I wanted to start with this color. And this strip I've also cut to so it's exactly the length of the signature itself. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to be taping and just making an interesting pattern, but just taping the colors that I like all in a row until we can kind of get to the width of our entire signature. And I will show you my end result. And I have completed my strips for my template. So now I'm going to put my template, my signature template, on top of my strips. Okay, so there's just a little bit here that I need to cut. Goes away there. I'm gonna just mark it where the fold should be. This big piece here because when I fold it, I didn't want strips of paper to kind of be in the fold. So I have this larger piece so that when I do fold it, I'll have a nice flat strip. Now that we have my signature here that we're completed, I want to do the back of the signature so that it gives it a little bit more strength. I've chosen this light gray scrapbooking paper. And so how I'm going to do this is I'm going to fold it meeting the end to the end. My folder. I'm going to measure this, how large this needs to be through my template. And I realized that I don't have enough space, so I am going to add another strip here. And once again, I'm going to tape these to the sides. Now I'm going to get this in the fold again and cut it to the right size. So there is the back of this signature. Before I start gluing and taping and everything else, I'm going to draw my lines on this one and then I'll come back. I have done my lines, and just as a side note, I put some washi tape on the edges to kind of just cover up those that crease there, that line there. So this is going to go on the back of this, like that. Okay, to secure it. Then we're going to go and do the negative tree and the negative butterflies. Okay, I'll show you how to do that. So first of all, I'm going to make sure that this is where it needs to be. I also have on here that when I did my lines, I actually have sort of a border here that the lines don't go right off the edge, and I have a gap here. So I want to make sure that this is my page up. And I'll go on top of there. On the back, I put double-sided tape. This tape is really, really awesome. I love it. It holds really, really well. This is 1 inch, and this is Sokweg. It's made in Korea. So you can also purchase these in different sizes on Amazon. So I use my awl to take off my tape. It just works better that way. One thing that you have to be very careful with as well is that this double-sided tape, once it's down, it's down. So there's no sort of room to maneuver or anything. So with this, I'm going to fold this now in on my fold and use my bone folder to really make sure that crease is good. There we go. Okay, so when I do my negative space, I have it on that side, and if I just slightly trim off that edge so it can fit on there, that's okay. So that looks half decent. That's pretty good. Now I'm going to show you how to do the negative space on these two sheets with my silhouettes. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do my negative space. So as I mentioned before, I have these two sheets of paper that's going to go on top. Okay, I'm going to turn on my light table. I'm going to position this. And so what I want to happen is that I want my negative space or my negative image to be at the bottom. I also need to be very aware that when I do it, I want to put a quote underneath it. So I need space enough to do that. One thing that I wanted to mention as well is that I need to make sure that this page is flush against my cover. So if I put it in if I put that page in my signature, I need to make sure that before I start this, that this is flush, because I don't want it to be out too much and then I have to cut it off and then it goes wonky and it doesn't fit. So I made sure that this signature was flush against my cover. Okay, I place this on here and I'm very aware of where I want to place it. Okay, so if you can see that, that's up a little bit too much for me. I want it to be down a little bit. I want it to be at the bottom of my page. So I'm just putting this page parallel to this page right here. And this is the bottom. That looks pretty good to me. And I'm gonna just get my pencil and trace around it for now. These lines I can straighten them out with a ruler before I cut them. I also wanted to add just a little bit of like leaves kind of blowing. Here we go, and if you can see that. So I'm just gonna go back in, sort of tidy this up with my pencil and then cut it out, and I will come back. I've cut this out now and I've realized that all of these spaces here I had to cut out because I didn't realize, but that's okay, it doesn't bother me. I could use this for another project because I could cut out these little images, these little spaces here, and this could also be a negative space image that I could use. I also, after I've cut this out, I want to go through very, very carefully with an eraser and just erase some of my pencil lines that I see. Let's see how that looks. So remember I mentioned that there's sort of a gap or a border here. So this is the top of my signature. So if I open that up, and that is going to go here if I glue it down. I've already trimmed this part so it butts up or fits very nicely within my fold, so that when I close my signature, this shouldn't bend. That looks really great, if you can see that. How I'm gonna glue this down is that I'm going to use a glue stick. But that's looking pretty good. That's kind of what I had in mind. Okay, so there's a little bit of excess left over. I'm just gonna trim that off, but that is looking pretty good. So I'm gonna come back and show you how I'm going to do my quote at the bottom. So now the words underneath. So I had this black paper here, and I thought the black would really come out sharp. And I'm going to use my white gel pen to write the words. So what I wanted to do is rip the sides so that it looks kind of authentic. Have that kind of end with our edge. And how large or how wide I want this, probably an inch, a little bit. Let's see how well that goes. Or a little bit less than. Put my ruler down again. There, like that. That looks great. That's exactly what I want. I want it to be rough. So the quote I'm going to use, I'm not sure because it's quite a long quote, but I'm going to try to stick it in there as best I can. I wanted to also do the edges. There we go. And I thought before I put this on is that I wanted to just ink around my edges a little bit, just kind of give it more depth. So my quote will kind of fit underneath there, like that. I'm going to just punch it up a little bit so you can see. There we go. So before I start writing, so I know how far I have to go, I'm just going to rip a bit of this off, and that way I'll know my limitations of how wide. Like that. Okay, then I got my white gel pen. And the quote I'm going to use is, "Straight is the gate and narrow the path which leads to eternal life." So I don't think I'm going to get all of that on here. I guess I could squish it in, but I don't really want to squish it in. So let's just see how that goes. I'm just going to freehand it. So obviously this is going to be a little bit shorter, but that's okay. I can just rip off the edge here. I'm going to put ... because that quote doesn't end there. Okay, and there you go. So I just rip it off, make it fit. Nice. So I'm going to glue this down and I will come back and we'll start on this page. I'm back. So as you can see, that really turned out really well. I took some ink and just went over it a little bit just to kind of darken my white spaces here. But I really like that. It really turned out the way I wanted it to. So on to our next page here. So we're going to do the same thing. Use the light table. And this is a portrait, not landscape, which is fine. So because this is a little bit smaller than this page, I'm going to position this where I want it as well. So it's not necessarily going to be at the bottom. I want it to kind of go in between or a little bit higher up. So once again, my page is flush against the edge of this picture of the silhouette. Here we go. So I'm going to go in, cut it out. I'm going to glue it down, and it's the same process. So I will show you when I'm finished, and this is all glued to my signature. I've completed this now, and you can see my negative image here, and there's my quote. So if nothing ever changed, there'd be no butterflies. So as I mentioned before, I used my light table and I used my print off of all of my fonts, and I just traced it onto this and chose the fonts that I wanted to, and it worked out really well. So now we're going to move on to our next negative space signature. All right, so our next one is this image here with our negative space. So I really liked that idea of planting trees or having trees at the very top of the horizon of my page, and then using these sort of bubbles as the trees go down kind of in the root or a cellar. And I would use I would construct this page on my signature, and then these bubbles I would actually line, and I would be writing in these bubbles my words, my text. So I wanted to kind of follow that because I really liked that idea. So what I did is I made a signature, okay, and then I kind of pre-constructed this image here. Okay, so I have this, and so this is going to be my sky. This will be the ground, brown, and then this is the grass at the horizon. So as you can see in the image here, there is sort of a grass part. It's in brown, but there's a grass part here, and I wanted to differentiate between the sky and the ground. So that's what this green piece is. I also, for the trees, I just didn't want to go in there and draw anything. So I actually used my round punches. I use these a lot in my work because I really like the idea of punching out images. So I'm going to just come in a little bit closer here. There we go. So I have like a 1-inch hole punch. I think this is like a 3/4. I'm not quite sure. And this is like possibly like a 1 3/4 or something like that. So I made sure that the holes that I was going to punch weren't so large that it wouldn't make sense here for a tree. So the holes that I punched are actually my trees. Okay. I also took a picture. I placed it on my signature, and I took a picture of the placement because this is what I want it to look like, because I just didn't want to trust myself in going back in and trying to figure it out, because I really like this placement. So this is just sort of a template for me to follow once I have this all constructed. So first of all, as I mentioned, I have this signature. So we're going to glue the sky to the top first. Once again, this is my border here. So this is the top of my signature. So I'm going to put these to the side, and I'm going to glue the sky on. So I have my sky all glued down. So for this, I'm actually going to use my double-sided tape because it is quite a large piece, and I'll use that. So I will put it on and I will come back. So I've put my double-sided tape on the back, and now I'm going to take it off. Okay, I have a little bit of a strip here. Now I'm going to glue my grass. I didn't actually cut out my grass. I tore it into a long strip, and then I used my ink to just decorate the edges. Okay, I'm going to do some trimming and I'll be back. Before I trimmed the signature, I put it into my main signature here, and I made sure, once again, it was flush before I started decorating. Okay, I had to do a little bit of trimming on the bottom. It's a little bit shorter, but that's not a deal breaker. It's all good. Okay, so just make sure that you always trim before you decorate. So here's my little kind of reminder template of where I'm going to actually glue the tops of my trees. Okay, change of plans. So I did this tree with the felt, and I really didn't like the result. So you can see that. I didn't care for that. So what I did is I went in and I took this darker brown and I just made my own trunks out of paper. So I'm just going to do this last one for you. So I put the paper alongside my tree so I would know what length it would be. So I just kind of roughly drew out a stick tree. Go. Trunk. Get some glue. And stick it on my tree. Okay. To me, that's just a lot. I like that a lot better, the look. So I just went in there, made it a little bit darker, but I like the look of the trunks now. So now we're going to decide on which trees to use for our bubbles. So I kind of like this tree. So I would probably think about 2 or 3 maximum bubbles on each page. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut out sort of these bubbles and then just trim them down and then use those as templates. These are the colors that my bubbles are going to be. I'm going to just choose from those, which they're really light, and I can write my words on them. So for now, I'm putting this down here and using the trunk to kind of guide me of how big my bubble needs to be. So if I start here, and I got to make sure that I don't go beyond my fold. Let's see, so that's where the bottom of my page is. Okay, there's one. Let's see, I like that one. Okay, and then I'm going to just mark where my fold is so I don't go beyond that. And then I'll use this tree here, kind of like that one. I get to go down really deep, make it fun. I just might do this, branch it off, and then kind of even make this bigger right here. That's kind of cool. Like that. Okay. Then I'm going to cut these out. So I'm going to just 1, 2, 3, just kind of know where I place them. Get that in there. There we go. So let's just measure these, and I can do any changes that I want to right here. And let's go down like that. Like that. think I like that. Okay, so I'm going to use this as a template to pick some colors to go in here. Okay, and then I'm going to do exactly the same to the next page, and then I'll come back. I have finished this part, and now I'm doing the other side. I have these cut out, my 1 and 2. And I already put the lines on them, so I'm just going to do number 3 here. I've already traced number 3 on the back here. I'm going to flip it over, and now I'm going to do my lines and cut it out and glue my bubbles to my page. Okay, so and make sure my lines are like that, and I just follow the lines on my lined paper. Just like that. And I'll keep on going down, and I'll come back to cut. I have cut out my piece, and I've put the lines on it. Now I'm going to put some ink around them. This one is number 1. That was right here. So that was number 1. This was number 2. There we go. And number 3. Just like that. So gluing it down. So if I put this in my signature, so as a recap, just going through, there's my cover, dealing with negative space. This one has my tree with my quote, and this one has the bubbles, just like that. Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today on episode 6, signature number 5. Please like and subscribe if you're liking this series so far, and I will see you next time.